Hey everyone, this is Avani from Hedgecraft Heirlooms, and I am here today. We're going to be talking about the power of ritual trance. And today is kind of a big deal, not just because, it's sort of a cool topic if you ask me, but this is actually going to be my last live stream for a while. The next time I log in to do live stream is probably not going to be until I do my 1990s week, because I've been doing since late winter. I've been doing this series that's 20th century witchcraft. We've been going decade by decade, and the 1990s is the only one I have left, and all of those have been live streams like this one, so I definitely want to be consistent with that. But other than that one that's coming up at some point in the near future, this is going to be it for a while. I'm intending on spending a lot more time.
The one I have left, all of those have been live streams.
A lot more
like
time focusing on making TikToks and Reels, because I did some polling on my Instagram. I'm looking at Facebook and trying to say Instagram. On my Instagram to see what people really preferred, and a lot of people indicated that they really liked Reels and TikToks a lot more. So I've decided to kind of take the energy that I've been putting into these for you guys, because I tend to only get a handful of people at a time, and put them into the Reels and the TikToks, because those are really getting a lot more visibility with the algorithm. Where something like this only gets pushed out by the algorithm for a very short time. The Reels and the TikToks, they kind of stay in rotation indefinitely. So it's sort of better for my business and better for my business model to do whatever the algorithm wants me to do, somewhat unfortunately. Because Reels and TikToks historically haven't been my favorite thing, but have to grow with the times. If you're here watching, of course, if you could throw a hashtag line into the comments, hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay. Especially if you're on Facebook down here, because Facebook doesn't tell me who's here, it just gives me a number, and I like to be able to say hello. So that said, in my little pre-show here I have planned, while we wait for more folks to show up, I thought that we would talk a little bit about the cosmology of shamanism. Now, really quickly, because I didn't think to write it down. Definition of, because this is an important detail. If you don't know what that word means, then, what are we doing here? Cosmology. I know what it is, but I have a hard time to actually say. It says the science of the origin and development of the universe. So this is talking about from the viewpoint of astronomy, but a lot of people use the term cosmology in mythology as well to refer to the way that a culture has decided or come to understand the way the universe works. A good example is in Norse mythology they have the 9 worlds with the world tree and Jormungandr and all of the things that happen. That is their version of cosmology. It explains the structure and function and processes of the universe as they understood it at the time. So shamanic cosmology, and that is technically a shamanic cosmology, which we'll talk about a little bit more very briefly here. Where was I? Oh, Kelly is here. Karen is here. Hey guys, thank you. I totally switched tabs so I could look up that definition for you. So thank you for your patience. So when I talk about cosmology here, shamanic cosmology, I am referring specifically to, I hate to call it this, but I'm not sure what otherwise is the best definition, but what I would refer to as New Age shamanism, which is a little bit more of a universal system that was sort of developed, I'm guessing at some point in the 60s or 70s, although I couldn't pinpoint it, to sort of encompass a lot of different cultures and kind of boil it down to something a little simpler that us white folks could enjoy. So it does work. So even, again, and I could be wrong, there could be, hey Freedom, we're here talking about the power of ritual over trance today, and while I wait for folks to show up, I thought we could talk a little bit about shamanic cosmology. So, that said, like I said, every culture has its own kind of explanation of cosmology and what is right for them and what felt right for that particular culture. This is a very generalized, universal system that I am kind of going off of for this description, but obviously if you have studied shamanism, or especially in a particular culture, and you've found that they say something totally different, neither one is wrong, they're just different. And a lot of it had to do with geography, where they were and what they believed, and their kind of whole mythological structure. I'm just tripping all over my words everywhere today. But generally within this sort of universal shamanism system that I was taught, specifically, there are 3 worlds. So like I said, the Norse had the 9 worlds. There were 3 worlds. There's the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world. So the lower world in shamanic cosmology is generally where animal spirit guides live. When or if you go there, it generally resembles, it's very earthy, very nature, a lot of rocks, a lot of dirt, a lot of animals. It's sort of like, very wild, for lack of a better word, very wild. And so if you're ever looking to meet your animal spirit guides, generally that is where you would journey to in trance in order to meet or find them. And like I said, and typically one of the ways that you, like when you're doing trance work or shamanic journey work, the way that you get to the lower world is by entering a cave and going underground, or it could be just a hole in the ground, or it could be the opening in a tree that goes down into the earth, just for a couple examples, or into a mountain, think like a hobbit hole. And then we have the upper world. So, hey Tabitha, we're here talking about the Power Virtual Trance today. I was just doing a little bit of a pre-show here talking about shamanic cosmology. So we just talked about the lower world, and we're just about talking about the upper world. And the upper world in shamanic cosmology is generally a place where we find ethereal, less corporeal spirit guides. Sometimes there are things that resemble fairies or angels, and other random, non-specific energy entity things. I'm trying to make fun of Star Trek here. They have a better way of phrasing it that's not coming to me. I've been watching Lower Decks lately, so but that's what I'm thinking of. So anyway, things that don't generally have a body or are very not want to say insubstantial, but insubstantial in the physical sense. Like you could run right through it, or you can't really touch it. It's just light energy almost. And typically the places where you reach, the way Tabitha says, hi, hedge flying. Yes, this is a little bit about hedge flying, talking about trance, and absolutely. So the way that generally when you're doing journey work or trance and you're trying to reach this upper world, the way you do that is by going up. Sometimes that means flying. Sometimes that means going to a really far high place and jumping, or even stairs. Your mileage may vary. Some people use different visualizations depending on what works for them. And then finally we have the middle world. This is the last thing we'll cover, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the power of ritual trance, which I'm excited about. So the middle world is generally considered to be parallel to this reality. It is where, and I'm sure there's some might be someone out there that will correct me, but I believe that where you do middle world journey work is similar to the astral plane. So I suspect that's where astral travel takes place, on that astral plane. So the astral plane and the middle world may or may not be synonymous. It's generally where the spirits of those who have passed on and haven't yet moved on tend to live. So it's both fascinating to explore, because I feel like in a middle world journey you can go anywhere that you're familiar with on the physical world, but you could also run into energetic beings that maybe you can't see with the naked eye that may or may not be friendly. For the most part, when you're learning shamanism, generally they don't recommend the middle world as the first thing you try, because it can be a little hairy. The lower world is usually your safest bet. It's the most similar to what you're used to, without the potential for quite as much danger, I suppose. So that's just a little quick primer on shamanic cosmology, which I think is relevant as we're talking about the power of ritual trance, because to me, trance and journey work kind of go hand in hand. They're very, very similar. Just one is a little bit deeper than the other, and we're going to talk about that, which I'm very excited about. So let's get into it. So I found this really interesting, and this real quick before I get started, because I know I have more people here with me here now than there were before. Once again, if you could throw a hashtag live into the comments if you're watching, hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay. And as a reminder, if you haven't been paying attention to my Instagram stories, or you haven't been seeing anything, this is actually going to be my last live stream for a while. I have been doing some polling on my Instagram, and people have been really telling me that they prefer Reels and TikToks, and realistically, that's where the algorithm is really taking people right now. So I'm going to be kind of moving into putting my energy into that instead. So this is sort of the last one for a little bit, so I hope you guys enjoy. So anyway, The Power of Ritual Trance, I found this definition of trance on the internet that I thought explained it really succinctly, and I'm not always the most succinct when it comes to my words, so I thought that this was kind of a great place to start. So the definition says this. It says, we see trance, and we referring to witches, Wiccans, and pagans as a generalization. We see trance as a voluntarily entered state of altered consciousness, which involves reduced conscious control over the body and its actions, a greater suggestibility, and emotional and intuitive openness. At its height, it is a state of pure flow, and is entered into rather like the tarot fool's at oneness and ecstatic identification with the universe. So hopefully that resonated with you the way it did with me. I thought that was a great way to explain it, because if you just plug the word definition of trance into the internet, you get like a million things. But this one that was really specifically talking about it within the context of paganism and witchcraft made the most sense to me in the context of what we're talking about today. Makes sense, right? So I want to talk about the different types of consciousness that we generally work within when we're in trance. And when I say trance, trance can be light and trance can be very heavy. It can be light where you are very lightly meditating while having your eyes open and doing something. It could be while you're almost asleep. So there's a really big range here. But the first wavelength, I guess we could say, of consciousness that I want to talk about is called alpha consciousness. And before I get too far into this, I want to give a big shout out to Laurie Cabot, who of course I don't know personally, but a lot of my understanding of alpha consciousness and a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today comes from the reading and research I've done of her materials. So alpha consciousness is basically light to moderate meditation. Alpha is the state of being relaxed, but present and mindful. So you're not unaware. It's not like you're asleep. It's not like you're hypnotized. It's almost like where I am right now, where I'm in a rhythmic tone of voice, where I'm speaking. I'm relaxed. I'm very focused on this. I'm not super focused on the outside world, but I am aware. And it occurs in a relaxed but awake consciousness. It can aid in mental coordination, alertness, intuition, relaxation, and is crucial to the integration to learn on the mind-body level. It's where we are the most susceptible to information, both on an intellectual level, and then of course we're going to talk about on a psychic or energetic level as well. Alpha is characterized by the relaxed, detached awareness achieved during that meditation. So according to Laurie Cabot, who I already kind of made a quick mention of, she says that in alpha is where we may also experience out-of-body sensation, psychokinesis, which is basically moving things with your mind, which I haven't experienced that one, admittedly, but, Laurie says it, so I guess it might be true for some people. Psychokinesis. Although that's telekinesis. Psychokinesis, I assume, must be the knowing, like clairsentience, sort of like just the knowing of a thing and acquiring knowledge psychically. Sorry, getting X-Men and witchcraft confused in my head. So it's also a place where you can receive mystical, visionary information that does not come through the five senses, meaning the five physical sensations of sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. So we're talking extrasensory perception. So Laurie claims in a lot of her work that in alpha consciousness, the filters that are generally present during everyday waking reality, which is called beta waves or beta consciousness, which we're not going to talk about a whole lot, but just so you know that if you hear me say that phrase, that's what that is referring to. As compared to beta, ordinary reality, when you're in alpha consciousness, you lose the rational filters, or at least they're weakened, or they could be gone altogether, that think of how sometimes when we dream, sometimes the craziest things happen. And in our dream self doesn't really question it. As a awake person, you're like, wow, that is weird. Tabitha says she loves my lace thingy and that she loves Laurie Cabot. I got this adorable lace thingy, which you'll see more if you hang out for my live sale, from June Drop on Instagram last week, and I'm in love with it. It's great because it's been like disgustingly hot, but then it's also really cold in the air conditioning, so it's like just enough to cover my shoulders so that I can be comfortable with the crazy heat that's out there. But anyway, I will show it off later, I promise, because it's such a pretty piece. So the reason why, because one of the things I love about Laurie Cabot, talking about Laurie Cabot, is that she places a significant weight and value on science as it relates to witchcraft, even if that science is technically metaphysics, which not everybody puts a ton of stock into, and quantum theory and things like that. But I love the fact that she taps into that, because to me that feels very grounded, in reality, in a way. And so the entire rationale behind why alpha consciousness works in that way, according to Laurie's sort of theory of the way things work in witchcraft, is she believes in something called holographic brain theory. And in that situation, every brain, my brain, your brain, Karen's brain, Kelly's brain, everybody who's here, everybody's brain, individual brain, is a hologram. So a hologram in this definition is basically, let me explain it in this way, because I don't know how else to describe it. So a hologram, basically, it is itself a whole, but if you were to take it, you could replicate the larger whole from which it also came from. An example that came out of a book I read somewhere, I think it was Stalking the Wild Pendulum by Isaac Bentov, who I read because Laurie Cabot suggested him. If you take, let's say you have a frisbee, just for example, a frisbee, and you drop some pebbles in it, and you manage to flash freeze it at the moment that all of the ripples are going across the water. So you have all these intersecting ripples, all kind of coming together in this really interesting pattern, but it's frozen like that. So holographic theory basically states that if you were to take that, hey Brooke, we're here talking about the power of virtual trance today. I'm actually just talking about holographic brain theory, and how it relates to the way in which we are able to connect when we are in a state called alpha consciousness, which is light to moderate meditation. So if you were to take this flash frozen piece of rippled water, you could break it, shatter it into a million pieces, and you could take a single piece, and if you were to shine a laser or a light through it in a specific way, you would be able to reproduce the original pattern. So that's a hologram. So being able to take a piece that is able to reproduce a whole or connect to a whole. So that is the theory behind the idea of each individual brain being a part of the universal consciousness. So by brain, I mean consciousness. I'm assuming they're synonymous here. So my consciousness is a hologram for the universal consciousness, and so is yours, and so is Karen's, and so is Kelly's, and so is Tabitha's, so is Brooke's. So everyone's consciousness can connect to that place. So the theory is that when you're in alpha consciousness, you are better able to tap into that universal consciousness, and I would very, very much argue able to tap into universal energy fields to perform much more effective magic, spell, and ritual. So let's see. So which means, being able to connect to the universal consciousness means having access to basically all of the information anywhere, ever, throughout time, which is kind of a big deal. And of course, Laurie also suggests that in alpha, we are freed from the space-time constructs and can draw in experiences from other places and time. So just kind of supporting what I just said. She believes that all the information, really. Kelly says she envisions fractals. Absolutely. I don't know enough about fractals to make any comments on that, but some part of that feels right, I guess. that feels very much like, I think of it like a lattice work or a framework. So when we talk about energy bodies too, getting a little off track here, but talking about energy bodies, we talk about the astral body and the etheric body and all these auric bodies that we have. And as energy healing works, or energy healers, were taught that when things go wrong in our energy fields, that is, it goes from least to most dense as you get down to the body, and the body is really just built around the lattice work or the framework of those energetic bodies. So to me, the fractals almost feel like the lattice work or the template for our physical reality. So that kind of makes sense to be tapping into it in that way. Anyway, total tangent. So Lori believes, and this I believe bears out in a lot of scientific information, that information in general is usually light energy, and light energy is what we are able to tap into when we're in alpha consciousness. And of course, and was believed, and was, I should say, and is believed to be absorbed through the pineal gland. Now, obviously, science is still kind of getting around to figuring out exactly what the pineal gland is for. The best guess that they have these days is that it is used to help establish our circadian rhythms. So as far as how we react and our sleep cycles, and how they relate to the setting and rising of the sun and light. So there is still definitely a light connection no matter how you look at it. Kelly says, in regard to that fractal thing, that it's like there's an infinite connection and a separate and sameness, if that makes sense. Sure, absolutely. Well, that's the whole idea of like the hologram or the holographic brain theory, is that, my brain is the separate piece, but it is still ultimately connected to everything at the same time. It's one piece of a whole, so they're really all interconnected. It's a big web. And even calling it a web doesn't feel right. Those weird like Marvel openings where you have what's supposed to be like synapses in the brain where everything is just like completely bundled up together. So yeah, it's a web, but it's so much more than that because it's so dimensional. I think that's a kind of a good synonym, simile. So that's the first level of consciousness I want to talk about, was alpha. Now I would like to talk about theta consciousness. So if alpha is light to moderate meditation, theta is moderate to deep meditation or meditative state. If you've ever had the experience where you're in the middle of falling asleep and you start to dream, but then you feel like you're falling and you jolt awake, that is theta consciousness, that place that's right before sleep. So pretty much everyone has had that experience. So you already know what it feels like to some degree. So it's basically, and then sleep is delta consciousness or delta waves, if you're not familiar. So the things that we generally do that happen in theta consciousness, like I said, is that point just before sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, dreaming, and trance work, of course. So theta is considered to be the gateway to learning, memory, and intuition. During theta consciousness, we cease to pay attention to the world around us, external stimuli, and we focus on everything that is coming from within. So obviously when we talk about the idea of connecting to the universal consciousness, if my brain is a hologram for the universal consciousness isn't out there. It is very much in here. And people say that all the time, like, totally seems like it's totally off the wall, but one of my absolute favorite quote from Harry Potter, and I don't want to get into a conversation about the controversy over Harry Potter, just hang in there with me, but my absolute favorite quote from Harry Potter is at the end of book 7 when Harry is in King's Cross Station with Dumbledore, and Harry says to Dumbledore, is this really all happening, or is it just in my head? And Dumbledore says to him, well, of course it's all in your head, Harry, but why does that matter? And that to me is very much the essence of the without versus within as it comes to connecting to the universal consciousness. Just because it's in our head doesn't mean it isn't real. It doesn't mean it isn't valid. And obviously there is value in both, but I think it's important to value both and not necessarily one over the other. So, where was I? So, of course, it is the realm of the subconscious mind. So, during theta consciousness, Tabitha says, I know what quote you were going to say. I'm glad that we're on the same wavelength. I love that quote. It's wonderful. I've been talking about for years of getting that tattooed along the arch of my right foot. Because when I sit cross-legged and when I'm meditating, that foot I usually sit with that foot on top of my left. So hypothetically, if I'm meditating and I come, back to regular consciousness, that's one of the first things I would see. So it's a reminder always to not doubt the things that happen within my mind, so to speak, because they're really maybe not in my mind. or they are, but in a much more expansive way than our language allows us to express. So, anyway, where was I? Oh, so theta is the brainwave activity present when you're zoning out, when you're doing something routine and that you can't remember doing it later. A great example, Tabitha says, me too, yes, do it. I will someday. It's just like one of those weird things that's like such a little tattoo that I've just never managed to squeeze into everything else. One of my tattoo artists regularly at the end of my appointment should be like, was there anything else small you want to do too? And that one is just the last one on my list I haven't gotten to yet. This was one. Finally got that done. I think that getting this one done, that was one of a small one that we did at the end of an appointment. So, Dumbledore quote is the last one on my list for small things to fit in with another appointment. I'm getting there, I promise. And I'll be sure to show you guys when it happens. But anyway, a good example of theta consciousness that you've all probably experienced in addition to that whole jolting awake when you first trying to fall asleep. If you've ever had the experience where, maybe this isn't, people don't experience this as much now because we're all working from home so much, but when you were used to go and drive to work, you drive the same route every day, it becomes a muscle memory, it becomes very automatic. And oftentimes after a while, it will become so automatic that you might get home from work and have no memory of how you got there. That is theta consciousness. That place where you're so deeply relaxed and so focused internally that the external almost ceases to exist, which is terrifying when it happens to you because you're like, whoa, how could I remember not driving my car? Like, people could die. But it always works out fine, right? But that's an example of theta consciousness as well. And just so you guys know, up here on Instagram, my phone is telling me that it's getting hot. So if things start to skip and get funny, I apologize. That would be why. Hopefully not. We're rounding the bend here into the end of this, I promise. The alpha and theta, I didn't talk a lot about it because I didn't want to get into too many nitty gritty details. Kelly says theta, never knew the name of this state. Well, now you do. It goes from delta, sleep, theta, deep meditation, alpha, beta, waking consciousness, and then there's another one called gamma, which is considered even higher, which I didn't go into here because the scientists don't know as much about that one as they do everything else. The information I'm including today is part of a larger class that I have taught in the past, so and I talk about it a little more there. But those are the kind of that's almost like, whereas these ones are almost like pseudo subconscious. Gamma is like super conscious, so a little bit different. But anyway, again, digressing. So the alpha theta border, so when we talk about these different states of consciousness, they're associated with different frequencies of brain waves. So the alpha theta border is somewhere around 8 to 7 hertz. I don't know what that looks like on a piece of paper, but if you know what an EKG looks like, maybe you do. But it's ideal for all work involving visualization, manifestations, and spell work, of course, which also includes both of those things. It's a great place. It's the place where vivid visualizations, inspiration, creativity, insight, as well as your mind's most deep-seated programs, that's where they all kind of live. I talked earlier this week, I think it was on Tuesday. Hey, Pretty Potions Apothecary, we're talking about the power of ritual trance today. We're just talking about theta consciousness, which is sort of very deep meditation, the state that happens just before sleep. But I mentioned earlier this week, I think it was on Tuesday, when I was talking about the idea of hedge walking, that sometimes I often find that my best ideas, my biggest inspirations tend to come to me when I am doing something monotonous or routine that does not require a lot of conscious thought. And so in that place when I'm very internal, that's actually theta as well. It's sort of that border we were talking about. So ways that you can achieve these levels of consciousness if you're trying to go out and do it intentionally as opposed to it just happening on its own, which of course does happen. There are ways to do it, but I also want to talk about why it matters too, but we'll get there. Many of the methods that are used to induce these states are the same methods that people talk about using in order to raise energy for spells or rituals, which is why we're talking about it here today. I did a poll in my midweek check-in on Wednesday to ask people, do you use trance and ritual? And I think it was something like a quarter of people basically said, no, that's too much work. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not too much work because you're probably doing it at least in part anyway. But when you add it into what you're doing already as an intention, it can add that much more power to what you're doing because of that holographic brain connection to the universal consciousness, to the universal energy field. It gives you an ability to tap in to a million things that you might not be able to tap into otherwise. Kelly says, this is the state I've been in when a creative idea pops into my head and I snap out of it or write it down. Yes, absolutely, that's exactly what it is. And I get that because that happens to me too, and that happens to a lot of us. So but when we tap into that intentionally, we can get that much more out of it. So the ways that people generally induce these states of consciousness are through the use of rhythmic sound, oftentimes a drum, which is up there. I know I can't pull it down now, probably without breaking something. Kelly says, you mean you can create this? Yes, in a way you can, absolutely. So basically by putting yourself into a deep meditative state, which is, again, where we're trying to get to is that alpha theta border. So kind of very sort of a moderate to deep meditative state. That's where we can almost induce that kind of inspiration and creativity if we know how to listen correctly. So the ways it's often done is through the use of rhythmic sound, commonly a drum, like a frame drum, which if you were here for my ritual chanting video, you probably heard that. Hey, Mia, we were just talking about the power of ritual chant, talking about how you can induce trance on purpose in order to make your spells and rituals and magic more powerful. Rattles can also be used. Of course, I didn't bring any out here, but rattles. The idea is just that you're doing it at the same pace. Now, if you have a hard time getting into trance while doing a rattle or drumming or doing something else at the same time, there are a million places on the internet where you can go and find recordings, and you can just put them on with headphones, ideally, so you can't hear anything else. It helps you tune everything out. Or singing bowls can also work too. Kelly says she's so happy right now. I'm glad you're happy, Kelly. Because that's kind of what I'm here for, is to help make people happy, I think. I hope. And similarly, too, I talk about the idea, and I didn't write this on my outline, but this is a good point that just came to me. Inspiration. That the idea of wearing headphones, so the idea of wearing headphones for me, I like to do that because it helps me tune everything else around me out. And the reason is because so another thing that helps is sensory deprivation. And I've never done an actual sensory deprivation tank, but when you go into those tanks, actually, that's one of the main things that they're attempting to do there, is to put you into that moderate to deep meditative state, because it's very relaxing and it's very restorative and it's very healing, mentally, emotionally, physically. So sensory deprivation is another way that it can be done too. It's just that's really difficult to achieve because there's just so much sensory information around us, like, all the time. Visualization, of course, another way that it can happen. So, like, actively meditating or bringing yourself into a meditative state, whether that's through breathing or shamanic journey work, which again often uses drums. Rhythmic or intuitive movement. So this one is really big to me. Singing too, so chanting, of course, can also work to a degree if it's something that is simple enough that you can do it with muscle memory as opposed to thinking about what you're doing. But rhythmic and intuitive movement, which is basically trance dancing. And I love trance dancing. I haven't really had an opportunity to do it in quite a while. But the idea is that you put on music or drumming or whatever makes you happy, and you just move to it with no choreography, with no intention. It's just you feel where your body wants to move and you move it into that. And you don't even have to be able to stand up to do that. You can do that sitting in a chair. But once you get into that kind of state of being so, again, internally focused on your body and feeling the kind of waves of energy around your body to guide your movement, that is a way to go into meditation and induce alpha or theta state as well. Stillness, silence, focus on intention, which is similarly to the sensory deprivation, but different at the same time. And of course, mindfulness. Kelly says, I love to float in water with my ears under. I love headphones. I chair dance. Awesome. Hey, Crafty Pagan Women, we are actually just wrapping up. We were talking about the power of ritual chant today. And then I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again, why it all matters, why I wanted to talk about it today. I did that poll, and like about a quarter of people said that they didn't really bother too much with trance and ritual. But I feel like it is a really integral part of magic. When people talk about the idea of raising energy, generally and I feel like this is true both with energy work and with magic. For the most part, the energy that you're raising in a spell or a ritual is not necessarily your energy, but ambient energy that's around you. Again, from that universal energy field. And when you're tapped into alpha and theta, it gives you the opportunity to tap into all of those fields, into the universal consciousness in a way that you might not be able to otherwise. So I think that it's a great way to supercharge your magic and make it that much more effective. I said, and what I wrote here is that magic requires the intent or power of the will. The will of a person or people works, weaves, and molds the energy. Then this energy is sent out into the ether and creates the desired effect as a sort of framework for physical reality, which we were talking about that with the fractals, Kelly. And in order to do magic, the strength of will and an ability to raise energy are required. And all of those things often require trance. So that is what we have to say about the power of ritual trance today. So only thing I have left to possibly do here is my live sale. I did it earlier this week. I'm going to do it again. I'm really glad that you guys enjoyed this one. And again, just because I want to say it again, because again, people have joined us throughout, and I want to make this announcement again. This is going to be my last live stream like this for a while. You can find all of my past live streams on my IGTV channel. The live streams I do from here on out are mostly going to be sales. I'm going to be doing one once a week. There are going to be little live sales. But these educational live streams are going to be going away for the most part, just because with the algorithm shifting, I kind of need to stick with what works so that people could find me, because what's the point of putting the information out there if no one can see it? So if you have ideas or hopes for content that you hope that I will put out, be it in a TikTok or a reel or a YouTube short, which are all basically the same thing, always feel free to send me a DM or a message or whatever. I would love to help you out. Galen said, what channel? My IGTV. So IG meaning Instagram. So, and you can find them all on YouTube as well. And I will post a link for that right now since y'all are asking. So IGTV. So every time I make I've made one of these live streams on Instagram, it gives me the option to upload it and save it on my profile, so that people can go back and rewatch them. Likewise, I always go and upload them to my YouTube as well, which I am grabbing that link for right now. Kelly says she's gonna miss me here. The live sales will certainly be Facebook and Instagram as well. And once I get my act together, hopefully I think that I can share my TikToks in the Facebook group and on my page as well. I just have to get my act together and figure out how to make it happen. The truth, honestly, a lot of my business is on Instagram. So a lot of my folks that buy from me are there as opposed to on Facebook. So unfortunately, I kind of have to make sure that they're seeing me first and foremost. But I am still, of course, going to be active on Facebook. I'm still going to be doing things. I'm still going to be posting content there. It just won't be the live streams so much. So anyway, so that's what I have for that. But I'm happy to hear people are going to miss me. There's part of me that I'm sure will miss it too. Like I said earlier, but I didn't actually repeat. For sure, when I get to doing the 1990s week, I will do a live stream like this again, just because I've done every other one as a live stream, and I want to make sure I wrap it up in the same way that I started. So yeah, so let's do this live sale. I'm actually going to move you guys a little bit, because I want to be able to stand, plus I can show off my thing. Although before I do that, real quick, I just realized I want to do my little sign off, because like I said, I am going to upload this to the YouTube. So if you're here watching on YouTube, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed my video series. I have a ton of things on my YouTube channel and a bunch of things on my IGTV channel already. So if you're missing me and you want to go back and rewatch something, you can find most, if not all, of my old videos online somewhere as well. So that said, I love you guys so much. This isn't goodbye. This is just a little bit of a change. I'm still around. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in a brand new way and getting to interact with you guys in a brand new way. So I look forward next week. The whole theme is going to be your inner Virgo. So we're going to be talking a lot about, for all my witchy, bossy business babes out there, are going to be talking about time management and organization and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that. give me a chance to kind of work with the folks that interact with me that have their own businesses, which is quite a few, especially on Instagram. So anyway, love you all. I will see you next week to talk about your inner Virgo. I hope you all take care and blessed be. Mwah. All right. So let's do this live sale. So earlier this week I did the live sale. I was standing for that one too. Unfortunately, the angle for that is not nearly as flattering as this one is because this stays down here, but I come up here, so you get to see all of the chins and all of the boob, which is quite a bit. All right, so here I am. So first of all, let me show off this amazing duster I'm wearing. So this is actually Torrid, but I bought it secondhand, vintage, on the Instagram from, I think it's June.drop. And she was really lovely. It shipped super fast. I love it. She called it her a Stevie shawl because it reminded her of Stevie Nicks, which I'm totally on board for in so many ways. So anyway, that's that. So you get to see what that looks like. So let's do the live sale. I have 10 items. Usually it's 5. I have 10. Probably moving forward, I'll have a few more. I'll probably do like about 10 items as well, just because I'm only doing that one live thing a week, so I want to make sure that it's worth it for you guys to tune in, right? So anyway, I have 5 clothing items, 5 home decor items, because it doesn't matter where I start. First thing, Galen says I always look great. Oh, thanks. I actually do try. There's effort involved. So first piece is this. It's actually a vintage, I believe, Avon perfume bottle. I have a supernatural talent for finding those. But it is a potion bottle that can be reused. It does smell a little bit like perfume still. But it could be absolutely cleaned out. Galen says, nicest witch ever. Hey, there's a lot of nice witches out there. Don't undersell everybody else who's out there. But thank you. So I think little bottles like this are great for creating your own potions, elixirs, etc., etc. And then, of course, real quick, I didn't say, if you like an item, if you want to buy it, just put the word sold or me into a comment, and ideally DM or private message me afterwards. We'll get you squared away on PayPal with an invoice so you can pay. Any items that are purchased between today and Sunday, actually will get shipped on Monday. So that includes things that were sold in the drop last night, which, by the way, I had a big drop last night, so there's a ton of new items on there already. Kelly says I have this bottle in blue. I actually did sell a really similar one in blue a good few months ago. That was also Avon, and it was very similar, but I think it was a little bit bigger. So this one's a little bit smaller. So I'm letting this little guy go today for $8 plus tax and shipping, which is a really good deal. So if you're interested in this guy for $8 plus tax and shipping, just put the word sold or me in a comment, and it could be yours. That's what the bottom looks like. I didn't actually show that. So that's home decor item numero uno. Now let's talk about a clothing item. So clothing item number 1. This is a dress. I'm actually going to try really quickly. I'm going to see if I turn off my light, if it makes it easier to see this at all. Well, maybe a little bit, maybe not. I guess you can see a little more of the shadow. So this has this really pretty ruffled detailing in here. It is a maxi dress. You can see I have a hard time fitting it in screen still. And it buttons down, of course. And I messed up the buttons when I was trying to do it. You can see it's got these plain black buttons. This is Kathy Lee Woman. It's tagged size 22W. Let me measure it for you. Well, actually, I'll wait to measure it until someone asks. If someone wants to know a measurement, just let me know. Kelly, just let me know if you're interested in the bell or the dress. I assume it was the bell. Just let me know. 22W. It is a short sleeve, dark floral maxi. Pretty sure this is black in the background. But it's super pretty. You can see it's a little big on me, but it would be super cute. If I were to wear this, I would belt this down and wear it that way, because I always like to belt things down. But if you're interested in that pretty dress, let me know. That's clothing item number 1. Home good item number 2 are these cute silver. Oh, let me put my light back on now that I don't have the clothing. I just wanted to make sure you guys could see that ruffle. The bell. You got it, Kelly. Is these cute tongs. I think this would be really great for scooping really chunky like herbs, like rosebuds. I find would be good. You know, like things that kind of like stick together a little bit on their own, to kind of go in and scoop them out so that you could pull them out for various things. I have no idea what this type of tongue was actually originally intended for, but I just thought this was such a pretty piece that I couldn't help myself. Hopefully you can see the detailing on that. And this is silver plate. So I'm letting this one go today for $10 plus tax and shipping. So if you're interested in these really cute silver plated tongs, let me know. They could be yours. Number 2. Clothing item number 2. Let's see. Let's do this. This is another dress, but it is sleeveless. So I bought this for myself, and it just didn't quite like the way it looked on, so passing it on to you. It's kind of a last-minute summer item. And again, I'm going to turn off my light to see if it better shows off some of the detailing in here. Oh, maybe a little bit. It's hard to make out, but there's a lot of seams that go down the dress vertically, which is a detail I really loved about it. This says Perceptions Woman, size 1X. And you can see here how it kind of fits on me. It's a little loose on me, but not a huge amount. And again, I would belt this down because I belt down everything. Maybe does the back show the seaming? Not really. Well, anyway, it's a really pretty pale pink. It's almost, I want to say neon, but it's very, very bright. Oh, and I didn't say how much the dress was. I'm a little silly today. The dress, I believe I said earlier this week, was $24. Important detail. Dress, $24. Tongs, $10. Bell, $8. Although Bell is sold. This dress is, well, I lost it. We'll say, oh, I think maybe that one was on here. So this dress, I'm going to let go today for $14 plus tax and shipping. And this on me is about just past knee length. So we'll call this midi length dress. If you're interested in the measurements, just let me know in the comments. I have my measuring tape handy, but I don't want to spend too much time on it in case people aren't interested. At least I had my measuring tape handy. It's around here somewhere. I'll track it down if anybody wants it. All right, home good item number 3 is this really beautiful bowl. So this is actually all a sterling silver onlay, including the rim here. And actually, my favorite part of this is the detail of it is the handle here. Oh, there we go. Now you can really see. I just think it's really beautiful. Letting this go for $10 plus tax and shipping. So if you're interested in that one for today, let me know. Put sold or mean a comment, and it could be yours. I'm just trying to find a place to stash that. Clothing item number 3. We have a shirt. So this again has a ruffly top. So it's split in the middle because it is buttons again. And again, we have some plain black buttons. This says here Worthington. It does not have the tag that has the size on it anymore. I would say that this is probably an extra large. It feels like it would be a little snug in the bust for me. Oh, Kelly says the bowl is sold to her as well. Excellent. I will put those things, goodness, I will put those things together for you. I love that bowl. I'm glad it's finally found its home. I would say, yeah, so either a 16 or an XL, because that's what I wear approximately. Letting this one go for $12 plus tax and shipping. So if you're interested in the dark floral Worthington top, and again, this is a black background as well, let me know. All right. Home decor item number 4. I'm going to save my favorite home decor piece for last. It's this really beautiful glass chalice. So true story, when I bought this, I bought 2 of them at the same time. The other one sits on my personal altar. That's how much I love this design. And it's a little bit bigger than your average chalice. It's like a goblet. it's a big chunky goblet. It has some real substance to it. It's heavy. I love the kind of contrast of the pattern here to the pattern on the bowl. I think it's beautiful. Letting this one go for $8 plus tax shipping today, which is quite the steal. Giving you guys a good deal today. So if you're interested in that beauty, let me know. Sold or me in a comment and it'll be yours. Alright, clothing item number 4. I'll do these next. So I bought these for myself just the other day, and they came earlier this week. And they are too narrow because I have big, fat, wide feet. But they are so cute, and I would love to see them go to somebody who will love them. They are these shoes. So they're sort of vintage inspired, like 40s inspired. They are a size 9 narrow. My silly self did not put together that 9N meant narrow when I ordered them. Duh. So they are available for somebody else to snag because they are so stinking cute. I think I said I was looking to get $14 for these guys plus tax and shipping. So if you're interested in these amazing little tiny heels for $14 plus tax and shipping, which is about, I think, what I paid for them, let me know. I would love to see them go to someone who they will actually fit, who can love them as much as I do. Alright, final home decor item before I show you the last clothing item. So I saved, Kelly says they look like Jay's wedding shoes. They totally look like men's shoes. That's probably why I love them so much. They're just so cute. So I saved my favorite 2 items for last for you. Last home decor item is this really beautiful wall sconce / shelf. I think it's intended to be a soap dish. You can see it has this sort of seashell texture along the bottom in this very pretty smoky glass. And this is a basically new condition solid brass piece here. I got this when I was antiquing in Maine, actually, and I love it. I just think it is so beautiful. I'm trying to show that to you guys really good. You see it has this really pretty leaf detail in it. I'm letting this go for $20 plus tax and shipping. It is a solid piece. Like, it is very, very heavy. It is not going anywhere. These are 2 separate pieces, I believe. I think you can take off the glass part, although I don't 100% see. Oh, look at that. These are technically 2 separate pieces. There you go. You can see how they are separate, and this sits on here. Sits in there nice. Not like that. Well, I'm not going to futz with it too much because I don't want to ruin anything. There we go. But it's a beauty. So if you're interested in the really gorgeous wall sconce for $20 plus tax shipping, let me know. It could be yours. And then the final clothing item that I want to show you today, again, my favorite piece, is this dress. So when I found this at the thrift, it was such a mess on the hanger you couldn't even tell what was going on, but it is so stinking cute. I've been hanging on to it for like months. Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice there was a button on the sleeve. Too cute. I'll show you that in a second. And I thought maybe I was going to keep it, but it didn't quite look right on me, so I'm desperate to find the right person to take it home because I think it is so cute. So this dress, I keep mentioning earlier how I love to belt dresses down because I like to cinch them in the waist. So this dress, actually this vest part here, is not connected on the bottom, but rather it wraps around and ties in the back. So you can cinch it down in the waist on your own. So even though it is a vintage size 14, it could fit someone theoretically smaller. I believe that the dress, so the base dress, would probably just fit me. So again, it's about an actual, I would say it's closer to a modern size 16. My waist is 38. My bust is like 44, 46, 48, depending on how much stretches and something. And the length on this is maxi length. So actually, I guess it's about mid-calf, but it's quite long. So I would say it's almost like a 14 petite maxi. So it's kind of in between lengths, but it's just so pretty. You can see it has these really great faux pearl buttons. And as I noticed just a second ago, the sleeves are actually gathered just a little bit here. So that has a little bit of a puff sleeve effect with buttons on the sleeves as well. Like, so cute. This is also $24 plus tax and shipping for this really beautiful vintage dress. So if you are interested, put the word me or sold in a comment and it would be yours. And that said, that is all I have for the live sale today. So I am gonna, you know what? For as long, I usually like to limit the live sale to people who are here, but if you're here watching this in the after fact and you see something that you love, send me a DM, because if it's still available, I will 1,000,000% still offer it to you. The bell and the bowl, which I will show you again, are sold, but all the other pieces as of the ending of this video are, except for these, are still available. So that said, it is time for me to sign off and say goodbye for now, and I will see you guys next week. Like I said, next week we're going to be talking about your inner Virgo, which is my moon sign. And kind of fun fact, my mother-in-law is Virgo Sun, Virgo Moon, Virgo Rising. She is the Virgo of Virgos, so she will love it next week. So anyway, love you guys so much. Looking forward to that. And Brooke says, if that's the last dress that hasn't been sold yet, I'll take it. The first dress didn't sell either, but this dress is definitely, I mean, in my personal opinion, is 1,000,000% the winner. So if you're interested in it, absolutely, it could be yours. I would love to send it to you. It's so cute. So absolutely, the dress is yours, Brooke. So the dress is gone, but everything else is still available. So I'm going to put it with the other sold things as well. So anyway, looking forward to seeing you guys next week. I already have all my reels made and planned out. I'm super excited to go into something new. So I look forward to seeing you guys there for that. And I will be sure to figure out how to share those things in the Facebook group too, Kelly. Don't worry. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you next week to talk about your inner Virgo. So take care and blessed be. Bye.